Thank you very much. Can you hear me all right? Thanks. So thanks for this blast from the past. As you heard, my name is Bijan, and welcome to my talk about fitness functions. I've chatted with a bunch of you, and no one was really familiar with the term, but almost everyone is doing something similar. So maybe it's just about coming to a common term for this, and maybe you can learn something from our experience. So as a StaffPlus engineer, we are often thrown into unknown, ambiguous situations, which I'm showing you here as this dark, foggy forest. And now I have 10 minutes to show you why I think fitness functions can be your flashlights through this forest. So when you're sitting here, you know how to write good software, right? You know how to write it such that it's reliable, well-tested, easy to work on, extensible, and so on. Can I get a show of hands from everyone who thinks they know what good software looks like? All right. I expected slightly more. It's all right. We are all here together to learn. So what's the problem? It's not with you, the experts, of course, but it's with the others. The junior who doesn't get enough support, the mid-level who thinks they have to quickly push out features and maybe sacrifice quality in doing so. And maybe it's the internal tool you wrote years ago where you don't have enough time to do proper maintenance and which might break over time. So what can we do? First, we try to scale our influence by teaching others what good software looks like. So one great way to distill how to write good software are engineering guidelines, as we also heard today before. In a short document, you summarize all the things you want to see in production-ready software. As you can see here, they are amazing. Everyone is excited about them. And we are in fact so happy about our engineering guidelines, we wrote a blog post about them. Of course. So is the problem solved with this? Not quite. While the guidelines describe the desired state, they don't show the actual state. And when no one knows the actual state, opinions start to form, like our quality sucks or our quality is amazing, and anything in between. So this is not a great climate for making good decisions. So what's a fitness function and how can it help us here? The references I found lead back to the evolutionary architecture book from Ford, Parsons, and Coor with this quote. An architectural fitness function provides an objective integrity assessment of some architectural characteristic. Now, as you heard, I did my PhD in theoretical physics, so this kind of formal talk is basically my love language. But if you don't share the same fetish for this, you might prefer something simpler like, we can write tests that verify that our system obeys our non-functional requirements. That's more straightforward. That's cool. But with any task, you ask, where and when do you run them? And who fixes them when they break? In 2019, Paula and Wang from ThoughtWorks wrote a blog post describing how to implement a fitness function-driven development by doing checks in build pipelines. So similar to test-driven development, any change that you do will be checked against a set of fitness functions before it even lands in production. And some typical examples for this are checking for code coverage or checking for the existence of files like runbooks, or even doing automated load tests. But what if nobody actively works on a project? Especially when you want to enforce a new characteristic. You can't rely on somebody getting blocked on it because nobody works on it. The solution I found for this, that doesn't have a catchy name, is to run tests centrally for all projects, ensure ownership for all services, and inform owning teams of required changes. Fairly simple, but quite powerful. So now I will move on from the general terms to our specific setup and learnings. So I said I'm from Jimdo, I hope. So why is this especially relevant for Jimdo? Jimdo has been founded in 2007 and was for the longest time a website builder. Although nowadays we focus more on helping small businesses with all their digital needs. In these 17 years, we've helped bring over 30 million websites live. And I've looked up our oldest paying customer, and it's actually a hairdresser from Austria who joined Jimdo in 2008. So they've been using our product for longer than I've been working professionally. On the technical side, we have accumulated 214 distinct services by writing multiple product iterations in multiple languages, not shutting down all the old ones. And that while being a fairly small shop, not quite a small, but 70 engineers. So you can imagine when every engineer has to look after 3 services on average, any maintenance automation can really help our teams. So let's try fitness functions, right? I heard you learn more from failed experiments than successful ones, so let's start there. Let me introduce to you the feature flag janitor, as it was named by our DevX team at the time. In case you're not aware, and also slept through this morning when Joy explained it, feature flags are great to hide incomplete work, especially in front ends. But after rolling out to 100%, you have to get back to the code and clean up all the if statements. And this is often when you have already switched your context to the next project. So quite annoying work. So the idea was to remind teams to clean up by checking the age of all feature flags of a team and notify them when they configure it. So what could go wrong? Sounds like a fitness function. I already hinted at this. You needed to configure it correctly. There were a complicated set of steps you needed to perform. Then there was no support. Nobody followed up with the teams and helped them in case they had problems. Also, at the time, there wasn't full alignment between the engineering leadership. There were multiple heads, and some said we need to focus on new features, and others said we need to focus on technical depth. So for the individual teams, it left them in a state of confusion. So in the end, alert fatigue set in. Most teams learned to ignore the notifications, and last year we shut it off as we weren't seeing enough value to maintain it. So now we learned what doesn't work. We can invert it to our success case, the deployment notifier. It looks for services without regular deployments and notifies teams. We care about regular deployments because we experienced that when a pipeline didn't run for over 6 months, it's likely broken and the service, of course, doesn't receive regular security updates. So we have this desired state in the engineering guidelines, but the deployment notifier checks for the actual state as a fitness function. This time, there's no setup cost for the team. The tool figures out everything automatically. They get dedicated support from yours truly. I get a summary of all the alerts and join the team channels to understand if the work gets done or is at least prioritized. We have alignment with our CTO and directors. Quality is not negotiable was repeated over and over again. And the alerts now really need to be acted on, if only to avoid me asking annoying questions. So quickly, some key results from this. We had 15% of services violating the rule of regular deployments initially. 3% of services could be deleted because they were no longer needed, but were still running in production. 3% of services didn't have clear ownership. The alleged alert channels were missing or outdated. And most importantly, now we have clarity. We know exactly that all services running in production have a working CI/CD pipeline because we test our infrastructure weekly for this attribute. So, in summary, I hope I've convinced you that fitness functions shine this light of knowledge into the fog. But while having the data is nice, they can only be effective drivers of change when you align with your engineering leaders on what problems you want to prioritize. Don't create work for your teams, but make it easy for them to be informed. And follow up and support them to make the actual changes. Thank you for your time.